Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 839 of One Piece has dropped, so check out that chapter before you check out my thoughts on the chapter. I will definitely be spoiling you, so don't let that happen. Alright, we're good? Okay, let's get into this. Let's take a small moment to review what we know are the ongoing plots right now with Whole Cake Island. Luffy vs. Cracker, what's happening with that fight? Jinbei and the roulette. What happened to Jinbei? When will Jinbei appear again? What happened to Peckham's? Chopper and Carrot in the mirror world. Brook and Pedro sneaking into Big Mom's castle in the night. Does anyone else feel blue-balled by the fact that this chapter consisted of no additional information on any of those ongoing plots? Now, to be fair, I know that this chapter is going to be critical in the scope of One Piece, which is that in order for events later on to have an impact on us and to really matter, you need to build up the relationship between Sanji and his siblings, the entire Vinsmoke family, and get a better understanding of the Vinsmoke family in order to, truly appreciate events to come in the future. I understand that it's important, but the person inside of me who just wants to see what happens next after all of these ongoing plots, just continually getting blue-balled by Oda. You pretty much know something interesting happened in the last chapter, something that, you really want to know about. He's definitely not going to cover that in the chapter following. But alas, this is the struggle that us weekly readers have to go through. So, let's actually talk about this chapter. And really, there's not too much that I want to say, but there is one thing above all other things that I do want to say, which is, and it's pretty simple, fuck the Vinsmoke. There are still people in the community that think that the Vinsmoke will end up being some form of ally with the Strats. Now, these people are not the majority, but still, there is no way that Sanji is going to befriend at least all of the members of his family. There's some redeeming qualities with some of the Vinsmoke, specifically Reiju and Yanji. While having their flaws, they're not perfect characters. They do have some qualities which are kind of endearing to me. I don't mind them as characters, and I could definitely see them being allies at some point in time in the future of One Piece. But then we have Niji, and then Judge Vinsmoke, and Judge Vinsmoke, what a shitty father he is. Like, for real, like it literally he bothers me. He bothers me. And then Niji is pretty much the anti-Sanji. You can take every key quality about Sanji, things that you distinguish solely with Sanji, and then just completely flip it on its head, and then boom, you have Niji. But even Niji just seems, as Sanji says, to really be, in essence, a spoiled brat. He basically is a pampered up royal who is similar in reality to the Celestial Dragons. He doesn't value food because he has his choice of food. He never has to go hungry, therefore he will waste food. And then, Sanji ends up supporting the cook and then just the lower class in general. And so Niji's like, well then screw you. I'm gonna do something directly to piss you off just because I know it'll piss you off. But then we get to Ichiji, and I don't know if it's just me, it's probably not just me, but I get some serious evil vibes from Ichiji, suggesting he is probably the worst of the bunch. To be honest with you, I get the impression that Judge Vinsmoke can be considered a nice fellow when compared to really what's going on in the head of Ichiji. And so in this chapter we have confirmation from an idea that spawned pretty much immediately after we learned of the existence of the Vinsmoke. All the way back in the Zoar, where we meet Capone and then Vito, and then where they made some sort of threat to Sanji in general to help persuade him go to Whole Cake Island. And it's sort of suggested after that point in time that Big Mom, if you don't accept the invitation to the tea party, you may find the head of your loved one end up being sent to you in a box. And so a lot of people speculated that this would end up being Zeph. And I think this chapter pretty much confirmed that. Zeph's life is in danger right now because of the Big Mom pirates and the Vinsmoke's interest in Sanji. And so this is just another situation which proves that oftentimes the simple answer is actually the answer. Now, this isn't always the case. Obviously, each situation is unique. But a lot of the times I see comments such as, well, this is just too simple, it's not likely to be the case, it's going to be far more complex than this. And while sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And so this is an example of when sometimes it's not. That, who do we really know from the past is associated with Sanji? Well, it could be some brand new character that they're just like very small clues to their relationship, but this will end up being the person and it'll end up being awesome. But in this case, it was the most obvious connection from the past that Sanji had, and that was owner Zeph. And so we gotta keep in mind that Zeph's life is in danger. And so, if the Straw Hats were to sneak in and then take Sanji and then leave Whole Cake Island without settling, the situation with the Vinsmoke and the Big Mom Pirates' desire to get married, basically, it's impossible for the Straw Hats and Sanji to leave the island without doing something about, protecting Sanji's friends from the past. So this pretty much proves one of two things will happen. Given that I think, and a lot of people think, that the Straw Hats have not brought enough people to actually defeat a Yonko and defeat Big Mom, and there's several suggestions throughout many of the previous chapters that the Straw Hats' goal in this situation is not specifically to take on Big Mom, but rather just rescue Sanji, and they wouldn't even defeat Big Mom if they tried. So then Big Mom has to come to one of two conclusions. One, that she ends up being a friend of the Straw Hats and then sort of gives up on really wanting Sanji in the first place. The other option available to us is that she then at some point in time ends up finding the Vinsmokes to be her enemy. These are really the only two available options in my opinion. At some point in time, Big Mom will give up on Sanji, or the Straw Hats would have to actually defeat her, and since I don't see that happening, then it has to be the first thing. So this is just a little bit of logic to sort of prove my ideas going forward to the main bit of Whole Cake Island, which is twofold. One, Big Mom will become an ally. Two, this fight will center around Big Mom versus Vinsmoke. And so in addition to this, we have some more just really small details, which again give me the overall impression that the Vinsmokes actually do plan on carrying out this marriage. Saying something as specific as, in the future we may not actually be able to attend the Reverie because of this connection we're about to make with Big Mom and the pirates. Again, why would you say that if it wasn't true? If your plan, in essence, was never to get married with Sanji and then perhaps in some way assassinate Big Mom, then you wouldn't even be considering the possibility that in the future you won't be nobles able to attend the Reverie. That's not a thought that would be worth saying because you know that it's not true. So again, the Vinsmoke's not actively trying to attack Big Mom. So then we need some other way of, some sort of conflict between the Vinsmoke and then the Big Mom Pirates. So in my opinion, it'll either be because the Big Mom Pirates will become friends with the Straw Hats and decide to end the marriage, and that'll piss off the Vinsmoke, or there will be some accident that happens which throws some sort of conflict between the Vinsmoke and then the Big Mom Pirates. Not necessarily caused by either of those two parties, but like I suggested in my recent theory, perhaps the exploding box will play a role in this. And of course, both could be true at the same time. But anyway, let's get to the really just awesome bit that came from this chapter at the very end, which is definitely a clue panel. This is leading to something that is important information or interesting in some way, which is that it seems like the Vinsmoke army is composed of clones, which ties really well with the general impression that a lot of people have that the Vinsmoke are in some way based on Star Wars, and then the Empire, and then the clone troopers. I've seen comparisons between Germa 66 and Order 66, and then again, from Star Wars, they were heavily inspired by Nazi Germany, and then again we can see some similarities between Germa 66 and Nazi Germany. So again, all of this gives me further impressions that the Vinsmoke really are the evil entity of this arc. And again, this supports, in general, the idea that we already have, which is that, Sanji, Ichiji, Niji, and Yanji all being exact copies of each other, being twins, being quadruplets is highly unnatural. Then we know that, the Vinsmoke fodders are all clones as well, which highly supports, to the point to where I think it is pretty much fact at this point in time, that the brothers Vinsmokes are also all clones. So wait, if they're clones, then that means they're all like Sanji, right? That means they must be good people like Sanji. And, you know, while this thought is a thought that you can potentially have, don't buy into it because, you know, scientifically speaking, there's more than just your genetics alone which determines your personality, determines your nature. It also is determined by your upbringing and your environment. There's dual nature with, you know, your environment and then your genetics, and these play a role in determining kind of who you are. And so in this case, you know, they may be the same genetically, but their environments were completely different, how they were brought up. And so this makes Sanji a completely different person than his brothers. But as a side note, really there's one thing in this chapter that kind of, it blows my mind, honestly. I don't really have a good answer for this right now, which is that Yanji seems specifically to be waiting for Sanji. And then he was like, oh, you know, that girl that got beat, that was probably because of Niji, let me lead you to him. And then he takes Sanji to this room. And so my question is why would Yanji do this? Like, what is his real motivation for doing this? What does Yanji hope to achieve? But as an interesting side note, it is definitely a possibility that he says that he's going to lead Sanji to Niji. And then he takes Sanji to this clone room. So perhaps we're about to see another clone, or perhaps an incubation chamber for more Sanjis, you know, more clones of the Vinsmoke brothers. That's definitely a possibility. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this chapter. Let me know if you noticed something that I have not noticed from this chapter. Like the video if you liked the video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. And as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.